I'm delighted to welcome today Rachel Moore, who is a social media trainer, consultant and speaker. Welcome, Rachel, and happy birthday.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I don't normally interview people on their birthday, so thank you for making time today to join us. So, what is a social media trainer, consultant and speaker?
Well, that's a really good question. So I spend most of my day helping other businesses learn how to use social media effectively and confidently so that they get better results than they're currently getting. So that could be through the training, or it could be more of a consultancy side. And obviously the speaking side of it is actually going to events and talking about social media. So anybody that will listen, I'll speak to.
Right. Do you actually do the social media for people, or you teach them how to do it?
I do a bit of both. I originally started out doing it for other people, with a mixture of training in there, but it was top heavy to the social media management side of things. And then it became apparent that the training side was what I enjoyed the most. So I sort of switched onto that element of it. But I do still do some management, but I pick and choose because management is very, very time consuming.
When you say management, that's doing the posts for people.
Yeah. So
Um,
there's
um,
different kinds of management because you can just create the posts and put the posts out. But then there's also, if people want you to get involved with increasing engagement, increasing likes or followers, or sending people to funnels where it will increase the sales, all of that's way more in depth than just putting out 3 or 4 posts every week for somebody. So there's different levels. And of course, the packages that you charge depend upon the level of effort really that goes into it. But not
yes.
everybody understands that. Everybody just thinks, oh, I'll just get them to do that, and away they go.
It's like everything, isn't there? There's always more behind the scenes than meets the eye.
Absolutely. Yeah, way more.
Is there any particular platforms that you specialise in, or do you just cover right across?
I tend to work with the main four plus Google. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Google. I haven't really ventured into TikTok yet, but I am teetering on the verge of it, I have to say. I didn't particularly want to go there because the level of knowledge I need to have on each of the platforms is so in depth that trying to keep on top of all of them is quite a challenge anyway. So I didn't really want to put another one in there, but I think I have to go and have a little play on TikTok because it's obviously becoming more and more and more um, in the mix for businesses now. So yep, so I'm going to have to go there.
Right, okay. Well, make sure you don't overload and then end up diluting everything, because that's a piece of
Yeah.
advice that I was given years ago, which we don't always follow, do we? Um,
No,
but
no,
when
and
we're learning something new, we've only got a certain amount of capacity in our brain, and there's so many things now that dilute us and take us off course. And if we're interested in bright, shiny new things, before we know where we are, we're not in the rabbit hole, we're down the bottom of it,
yeah.
and exploring all the avenues as well. And that has a detrimental effect on our health.
Yeah, I can see that. And it is quite, well, I mean, I can totally get why social media trainers, consultants, gurus, whatever, just choose one platform and concentrate on it. I can totally get that. Um, because the amount of extra work that you have to do to keep on top of all the other platforms can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, especially if they're doing lots of updates and changes. And, Facebook is renowned for changing things almost every week. So
Really? Gosh, I
yeah,
didn't know it was that often.
yeah, it
Wow.
can be, and they roll it out at different times. So not I might not see that particular change until 6 months down the line from somebody in maybe America or in Australia. So well, also even in the UK, because there's something like 30 different platforms out at any one time, or versions of the Facebook platform out at any one time.
Really? Oh gosh, I didn't know that.
So you can be sat next to somebody and they open their laptop in Facebook and you open your laptop in Facebook, and you're not looking at the same thing because they've got a
Ah,
version. which
How
makes it hard to
interesting.
train.
Yeah, and that would also explain why sometimes, I'm out here in the Algarve in Portugal and my PA is in Wales. That
Yes,
may explain sometimes why I'm
yeah,
seeing different things and she's seeing different things. Ah, that
absolutely.
makes sense.
Yeah, it
Ah,
does, because you're trying to, well, explain a feature and she can't even see it.
yes, yeah.
Mm.
And we both think we're mad, but we're not. It's Facebook.
No,
Right,
it's just the way they roll it out. I mean, LinkedIn do the same. They roll it out, but it's just not on as big a scale as what Facebook do,
right. Ah, how interesting. Every day is a school day. We could always learn something, can't
isn't
we?
it?
Wonderful. So,
Yeah.
how did you get into being interested in this field, Rachel?
So that's quite a long story, really. My background is advertising and marketing. I worked for an advertising agency in my early 20s and moved from that to set up another agency with 3 colleagues at the back end of my 20s and into my 30s, and worked in that environment for many, many years. Absolutely loved it, thrived on it. But you eat, breathe, sleep, socialize advertising, and we're talking pre-digital here. So there was no websites, there was no internet. If we had to send some copy to a newspaper, it had to either go in the post or it had to be sent on a courier if we were about to miss a deadline. It was a totally different world, and you were just ruled by deadlines. But it was great fun, but it wasn't really conducive to somebody who was perhaps wanting to settle down, have a family, because you were ruled by the deadlines. So I ended up moving from there and going into sales. And then whilst I was in sales, I had my daughter. And whilst I enjoyed the sales side of things immensely because it was so easy, I actually wanted to spend more time with my daughter or be more of a stay-at-home mum, which was what I had when I was growing up. And I came across a network marketing company called Herbalife, who were offering the opportunity to, well, work from home. Now, this is about 20 years ago,
Mm.
so there weren't that many opportunities to work from home. I think data inputting was probably the only other thing that you could do. So I ended up working with Herbalife, and I worked that job on an evening, building up that business, and I worked my sales job through the day, so that when my daughter went to school, I could pack in the sales job and I could do the Herbalife sort of during school hours. And that's actually what happened. And coming back round to the question that you asked, in 2008, so my daughter was 8 then, in 2008, when the whole world was going into recession, for some strange reason, I had this light bulb moment that I wanted to take my business online, and I didn't know how to do it. Although I'd got an advertising and marketing background, I actually didn't know anything about social media or websites or anything. And so that's where my learning journey began, because I got the sort of the ethos in Herbalife was to speak to people, one to one. But I was thinking, well, I'm sure I can be more effective if I'm speaking to one to many. And that was why I was thinking about social media. So I had to learn how to set up a website and how to blog. And then once you know how to blog, of course, you need to get people to read your blog. So the only way that people can read your blog is to then put it on social media. So I had to start with Twitter and then work into Facebook. And that's why I know them all, because I had to do them all. And it became quite apparent as I was doing all of my learning that it wasn't actually that easy. And to be fair, things have moved on a lot now. It is a lot easier to do certain things. But back then it was quite hard, and I struggled with a lot of the tech because I'm not really a techie person. And I just kept thinking to myself, if I'm struggling and I've got an advertising and marketing background, how on earth is the average business person going to cope with all of this? So I ended up training and helping lots of my Herbalife colleagues to set up Facebook pages and this and the other, because Herbalife weren't even online back then. They didn't even have a presence. They did have a website, but that was it. So for probably about 3 or 4 years, I just helped anybody that needed help, but for free of charge. And then in 2013, sort of had another light bulb moment and thought, well, hang on a minute, this is a bit silly. You're not really building your Herbalife anymore, because you're spending so much time doing this because you really enjoy helping people to learn how to do this, that, and the other. But that's not generating any income. So you either need to get your butt back into your Herbalife, or you need to set this up as a business. And that was the route that I decided to take, was to go back into well, really, it's advertising and marketing again, just done in a different way. Back in the 80s, 90s, we were putting out adverts and things to encourage people to go to shops or motor showrooms and things like that. We were just driving traffic to the bricks and mortar buildings, but now what we're doing is we're driving traffic to websites. It's the same theory, it's just done in a different way.
The internet has really hugely changed. I mean, hearing you say about sending a copy in a taxi or courier or whatever in the post. I mean, to the youngsters today, it's laughable, isn't it? It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, and to think we've lived through this. We're the generation where we can see where we've come from and all the manual things. The telephones. We didn't have a telephone at home.
I can tell you the first time I did a full-on presentation, we had a client that was a motor dealer. It was quite a big motor dealer, and we were going to present this new idea. The car that it was going to go into was a mini metro, because the mini metro was quite new back then. And the concept was that we were going to put a mobile phone in the car for emergencies, because nobody had mobile phones. And I had to do all of the background work to set up contracts with the company and all of this kind of thing. And then we went to the meeting, and I was going this was in the early days, I was just going as the support for the account director who was presenting this. And he'd said to me, well, if you come, just in case somebody asks me a technical question that I don't know the answer to, but you'll know because you did the research. That was fine. So I was going. And then we were stood outside the meeting, and he was pacing up and down. And then he said to me, so are you all right about this? And I said, yeah, I'm absolutely fine. I said, but I've given you all the information, everything that you need. And he said, no, I think it'd be better if you presented it. And that was it. I had to just stand up and present to this room of motor dealers this concept of putting a mobile phone in a car called an emergency phone or an emergency line, which of course was very well received. But it just shows you how life has changed, because we've all got mobiles now. But this was just in case your car broke down, it was a direct link through to the RAC or Green Flag or whoever it was at the time. But embarrassing really when you think about it.
Well, it is. And I remember I was in 1997, 98, I was Chief Operating Officer at Ernst & Young, and I'd got over 200 staff reporting into me. And I remember we had a knowledge person, and I'm thinking, what do you mean knowledge? And she was creating this hub, and she reported into me, but I really didn't know what she was doing. It was something that was instigated before I joined. And then we talk about hyperlinks. Well, what's a hyperlink? Well, now, I mean, it's laughable. And that was only, well, I mean, it's over 20 years ago, but it's a nanosecond in our life, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
It's no time at all.
And in 2008, I was probably that person that didn't know what a hyperlink was, and so literally had to learn from the ground up. But I found it weirdly fascinating and intriguing, and couldn't not carry on doing it. I was just absolutely obsessed with it, really. But I guess that's because it was the new version of what I'd done in the past.
Yes, yeah. And it's interesting how many things that we do in life that are transferable and not a lot of people realise that things are transferable. Things we learn, nothing is ever wasted, is it? We learn different things, we have experiences, we have lessons, you know, whatever things go wrong, there's always a silver lining when we step back and you know, realise the lesson. So nothing is ever wasted.
No.
And we can join the dots very, very simply. Who inspired you to get into marketing and advertising, Rachel?
I think that was probably my father. He had his own agency back in the day when there were, well, it was clearly not like it is now. And actually, it wasn't like it was when I was in advertising. There was we're from Leeds in Yorkshire, and there was just 3 or 4 big agencies back then. And my dad had one of those agencies. And I used to go on a Saturday, not every Saturday morning, but a lot of Saturday mornings. He'd take me into work, and because he had work to do, and I would just sit at the reception desk playing with all the little buttons and pretending that I was a receptionist, or playing on the typewriter, or going up into the studio and playing with all the letter set and the big thick felt tip pens, and you know, just basically being a nuisance, I think, really. But I had a great time, and I think that probably inspired me, because he loved his job. He always wanted to go to work. He never had the, you know, I don't want to go to work scenario on a Sunday evening. And he always talked about it very affectionately, but he always made it very, very clear to both my brother and myself that there was no way we were getting gifted a job in his business, because he'd previously worked for somebody whose son had worked in an agency, and he just didn't like the vibes that would happen when the boss's son walked into the room, kind of thing. So we had to go out and, you know, and do our own thing. And I don't think at the time I was expecting to go into advertising and marketing. You know, my actual first job was in an estate agents and building society. It was only probably 6 or 7 years after that I actually went into an agency and started as an admin type person, and then, you know, worked my way up very, very quickly. But yeah, he was definitely the person that inspired me.
Right. You mentioned about the fact that he enjoyed his work and he didn't get the Sunday night, oh, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. There's a statistic, I can't remember the exact number of it, but the rate of heart attacks, I'm sure it's changed now because of the way work has changed and people working from home and so on. But 9 o'clock on a Monday morning was the time where most heart attacks happened, because they'd been building themselves up over the weekend, probably relaxing on a Friday night and a Saturday. Sunday they'd start building up to the fact that they've got to go into a job that they don't like, and that stress and the strain on the body for lots of people is heart attack time. So it's so important to enjoy what you do. And I know from the training that I've done with you and the regular social media hub that I'm a member of, it's you ooze you know, the fact that you enjoy what you do. It's so important for our health, really is.
I think that's the thing. It is. It's something that I do really, really enjoy, and I really enjoy helping other people understand it so that they can get the most out of it. And I find that very, very rewarding. So I'm just so grateful that I actually went all the way around the houses and dropped into what it is that I actually do by coincidence, really.
I think nothing happens by coincidence. A coincidence apparently is opportunity and timing. I was taught years ago. I did some training with Bob Proctor, and there's no such thing as coincidence. It's opportunity and timing. And when those two collide, people call it a coincidence. So you were meant to do what you do now.
And it was strange. It was strange. You know, why would I suddenly, that year, 2008, as I say, when everybody was going into a recession, decide to change what was working to try something different? You know, it was just, well, it's just what it is. Opportunity and timing.
Following your intuition as well, I guess. That's another thing that I'm always banging on to people about. It doesn't matter what I say to people about health and well-being, do what's right for you, follow your
Yeah.
intuition, ask your body will tell you whether something is right for you to do or not, whether it's health, whether it's career, whatever it is.
I think one of the drivers was that if we go back to 2008, I was doing quite a lot of training with Herbalife, as in helping, standing up and presenting about Herbalife. And I'd be going down to Birmingham or to Manchester, or sometimes we'd go abroad to events and things. And I was away quite a lot from home. And, David did sort of say once or twice, I thought you were supposed to be working from home. You're always away. And I think those kind of things sit in the back of your head and you sort of back of your mind, and you think, well, actually, you're right. I am spending quite a lot of time away. And the idea was that I would work from home. So, how can I turn this into a proper work from home business? And that was one of the drivers, I think, for looking at going online.
Excellent. I've just remembered some years ago, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I did a diploma in social media management. I thought I was ever so clever. And at the time, it gave me an insight into social media. But now it's absolutely pointless and useless, because what I learned then, everything changes. So as you say, so rapidly, you have to keep on it the whole time. But that's the same with anything in life, isn't it? Unless you use it, you lose it.
It is, although you think about some people's jobs. So, for an example, my other half, he often says to me, well, why are you still training? You've been doing this for years. Why are you still training? And, he's in sales, and he learned how to sell in his 20s, and he's still selling like he did in his 20s. Yeah, he might have tweaked it along the way, but he's never had to go to another training session. He's learned his trade, and away he goes. But for me, because it is such a rapidly changing environment, I have to keep training and trying to keep on top of it.
And also that means people need to keep buying from you, because
Yeah,
everything is changing, so we need to keep up to date.
yeah, which is
or
good.
hire somebody to do it, and that's not always possible for some people. What
No.
advice would you give to anybody now wanting to go onto social media? I'm surprised. I'm still hearing people who actually not on social media. They're only just getting their websites. They're only just thinking about having their business online. What advice would you give to people who are just at the beginning of this journey?
I would say, don't spend all your money on a website. Just get the most simplest website, even just a one-page website that doesn't cost you an awful lot of money, because once you start making the money, you can upgrade your website. The worst thing in the world is when somebody comes to me for some training and they say, I've got a website, it's going live in 2 weeks' time. I need to learn some social media. Fine. Have you got any budget to spend on advertising your new product? No, I've spent it all on my website. It's silly. So number one, don't spend all your money on a website. Number two, really understand who you're trying to target, because you don't need to be on all the social media platforms. I know I do, because I need to know about them. But generally speaking, other businesses don't. So choose one, possibly two, and learn them really, really well. And just focus on that one or two platforms, because if you're trying to be on all of them, you'll just end up overwhelmed and spreading yourself too thinly and not doing any of them really well. So I think the strategy is really to understand who your target audience is. You can always add the others in later, or you can get somebody else to, get a VA or somebody to take content off the two that you're doing and spread it across the others. But don't try to run them all yourself. It's just, you'll just end up not doing your own business. You'll just end up being a social media person.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So
I think that would be my top tip.
That's really, really helpful. Where to next? Have you got any things in the pipeline? You've got a magazine, haven't you? Tell us about Coffee, Cake and Educate.
So yes, it's just a little free magazine, a business to business free magazine that I set up in lockdown, really. It was to try to help some of my clients get in front of a new audience when they couldn't get out and about to get in front of new audiences, but to achieve that in a non-spammy way. So rather than me trying to send an email to all of my connections saying, do you know this person? Or, you know, have you got any work that this person could do because they're really struggling? It was more a case of, well, why don't we write some articles, short articles with tips and hints, and put them into a newsletter, and then we can put that newsletter on social media. You can put it on your platforms, I can put it on my platforms, it can go out to my mailing list, you can send it out to your mailing list, and then we've all got some extra coverage for not a lot of money. Well, for them it was no money. For me it's a little bit more money, but for them it was no money. And I've just carried on doing it. So it comes out probably, well, anywhere between every 6 to 8 to 10 weeks, depending upon how busy I am. But that's the ethos behind it, really. Anybody can contribute to it, as long as it's a B2B focused article that's got some kind of educational, interesting business kind of tips in it. That's really, you know, the crux of it. There's no advertising in there, you know, no interior designers that have paid to be in it. It's nothing like that. It's just literally, it's a marketing tool now. It's turned into a little marketing tool, and it seems to be very well received.
I've yet to look at it. I keep on seeing it come across on emails and with the links, and I've yet to get the time to, or make the time, I should say. We all have the same amount of time, don't we? It's how we choose to spend our
It
time.
shouldn't take you long. It's, you know, there's generally only 7 or 8 articles in there, and they're only 500 or 600 words long. So occasionally there's one that's a bit longer, but generally speaking, they're all pretty quick to flick through. So, you know, you can literally grab a coffee and a slice of cake and have a read.
Can you see that expanding at all?
Who knows, I suppose. Who knows? The readership or subscriptions would probably need to go up. If I wanted it to, it could have legs, because I could look for advertising to go in it and make it and monetize it. But I'm not really so bothered about that at the moment. I just like it as it is.
Yeah.
My focus is more on the hub.
Yes, yeah, the training hub, which is excellent. I write for a magazine every month in the Algarve here on health and wellbeing, and that magazine originally started because the owner was in his his family owned a hotel and what they call a quinta over here is like a bit more rural than a hotel, that is where people stay. And he was previously in ads marketing, etc., in an ad agency, and he created his magazine pretty much to promote the family business. And now I think something like 15 years later, it's going as strong as an independent magazine. And a friend of mine's just moved over here literally yesterday, and in a different part of Portugal to where I live. I've introduced them, and he's now mentoring her, and she's starting up a magazine in her area.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how these things do grow legs. So I'll be interested to
Absolutely.
see what happens with Coffee, Cake and Educate, but I must have a look at it.
Yeah.
Mum must write for it as well. I must write and send an
Absolutely.
article for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. It's just, we'll see how it goes. It's, you know, we're only on issue number 8, will be the next one. So it's still very, very young, but it does get quite a lot of traction. So it's, you know, and I get some nice feedback, which is nice. And obviously I get business out of it, which is even nicer.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so how do people get hold of you if they're interested in training and the social media platforms that you do, Rachel?
So they can contact me via my website, which is rachelmoresocialmedia.com. They can email me at rachel@rachelmoresocialmedia.com. They can also go and look at my Training Hub website, which is Get More, which is double O, so getmoresocialtraininghub.com. Or they can just give me a ring if they want. I'm quite happy to have a chat with somebody. And my telephone number is 07 904 007 660. So they're very welcome to just give me a call. I'm happy to do a discovery call with them and chat through what it is that they need. You know, whether the Training Hub is ideal for them, or whether they need just a one-off one-to-one, or whether they need a series of one-to-ones. You know, I'm very flexible.
Marvellous, thank you. And your spelling of your name, Rachel Moore, can you spell that out for those that are listening on audio?
Of course, it's RACHELMOORE.
Right, so Moore, double O, R,
Yeah.
007 in your phone number. That made me chuckle. My mum had 007 at the end of her mobile, and she'd say, my number is blah 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 James Bond. I said, Mum, people don't know what you're talking about. Of course they do. Everybody knows James Bond is 007.
Yeah. It's the amount of people that have actually commented on it is funny. And obviously it's the older people that remember Roger Moore.
Yes.
So they put the connection there. But yeah, it's funny. It is a bit of a talking point.
Brilliant. So Rachel Moore 007, thank you so much for your time today, and a very happy birthday again. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. It's been delightful. Thank you.